We're good, bro.
And we're back. We're way good. We're back with yet another episode of the Hole in the Soul podcast. Co-host Kevin Oldham here with co-host Jose Bolaños. A lot of gratitude today. We definitely appreciate you listening. And today we're going to tap into why we train for life. You know, Jose says something all the time. He always says, you know, like a athlete trains for their sport, we have to train for life. And as we're coming up with topics to share this week, I was like, man, that's one of the things that I am always saying in my head. So therefore, it must be important. It's something that Jose has taught me over the years and that I've adopted. And it's something that has been used by many people to improve their lives. So we're going to talk about why we train for life. Jose.
Kevin.
Welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to Wednesday, man.
Today's Wednesday.
This is Thursday, but we're recording on Wednesday.
All right. Why do we
train
for life? That is the basic premise of my work. Well, it's part of the basic premise that we train for life like a warrior or an athlete would train for their own discipline. If we're not training for life, we're probably going to fall under the demand. We're probably going to fall short of what's required of us. But what it means to train, that's a little more robust. It's not as simple. So we got to.
I think this is a pretty decent
train.
This is a pretty decent place to break down these principles for people. I think one of the things that social media does is it allows us to see what other people's rituals are like, what their activities are like, and your social media, you do that. You're really good. You're really good at documenting your life. And one of the things that I noticed that you almost daily post is your physical activity, whether that's taking a boxing class, or whether you are rolling out your muscles or building them up with resistance training. So like, what do you do?
Taking my gym selfie.
Yeah, your gym selfie. By the way, do you use like a tripod or something? Like I've never.
Oh, I always take it right in front of the mirror. I use a mirror.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I just run in front of the mirror.
You need to give me a selfie class next time we're together. Like, I don't feel like I'm very good at selfies. And you're kind of like the selfie guy between the two of us. Oh yeah.
People give
but
a lot
what
of
do you like?
Selfies.
Nah, screw them. We live in a selfie culture, man. But seriously, we'll dive into rituals after this, like our specific rituals and how you and I train for life. But let's talk about the premise. Like, what the hell do you mean we've got to train for life? Don't I just wake up and go through life? Isn't that what we do?
Well, that's a good question. Even, to answer for myself, why does an athlete or a warrior train? They want to perform better. They want to win. They want to survive. They want to be, they want to have muscle memory. It's mostly muscle memory. They want their mind, their body, and their actions and their capacity to be trained. So let's talk a little bit about we fall back. This is a very powerful thing. We fall back to what we've trained. We fall back to the level of our training. Let me give you a couple of examples. There was a story of a policeman in a shootout, and he gets killed. And when they investigate, they find the empty capsules in his pocket, the empty bullet capsules in his pocket. And they're like, why the hell does he have the capsules in his pocket? And it was because while they were training, they were obligated to pick the capsules up. So as they were training, they had to pick it up. So this guy fell back to that, where he went on automatic and he was just picking up the things. And, it probably hindered his ability to, because that's what he was trained to do. And it was mind-blowing to discover that he had fallen back even to that. So obviously they had to go back and change how they were training people. Like, screw the capsules, just keep on going. But here's another story similar to that one. When Conor McGregor when Conor McGregor fought Floyd Mayweather in boxing. If you go back to that video, if you go back to the beginning, the first round, this is Conor McGregor going from MMA to boxing. There's a moment that he jumps on top of him from behind and hangs on him. He fell back under pressure. It was, he had trained in boxing. He had trained in this, but he fell back to the level of his training. He fell back under pressure.
Yeah.
When it counts, whenever, when you lose your entire ability to think through things, you fall back to the level of your training. And you can see it in Conor McGregor when he starts, like, they had to stop him and say, yo, come on, this is boxing, bro. Like,
Can't do that.
So we as humans fall back to the level of our training. So if we're training for life, when shit hits the fan, I might today immediately focus on my breath, like take a deep breath. Mm-hmm. Maybe pause, because I have trained myself to pause. Or take a deep breath, or drop my shoulders, or do something different because I have trained to do that. So I believe training, builds muscle memory, and it builds what we need to respond in those situations. And I think that's where that premise comes from. And I think that's part of what it means.
It makes a lot of sense. And, as you're sitting here talking about, we fall back to the level that we trained for at. I have a friend who he used to fly jumbo jets for Cathay Pacific Airlines. He would fly the route from LA to Hong Kong. And he had, his jumbo jets. I mean, I don't know, probably over 500 passengers, 500 people's lives, right? And I used to always ask him, I'd be like, hey, you've been doing this a long time. I'm sure you've had some bad days at work, just like everybody else does. But a bad day at work when you're a jumbo jet pilot is a little bit different than a bad day at work as some other folks, some other vocations. And I said, what goes through your mind? I love asking like tough questions. I'm like, do you guys ever feel like the plane's going to crash and all these things, right? And long story short, he always comes back to the same answer. Because this is why we train. He's like, my training kicks in. He's like, I have a checklist. We have processes and all these things in your training just kicks in. That's why we go spend time in the sim. Even though I've been flying these things forever, I know this plane inside out, boom, boom, boom. And I was like, man, that is just, it's so true.
Yeah.
If you look at anybody who's at the top of their game, I don't care what it is. It could be music. It could be anything, any worthy pursuit. Excellence comes from training.
Yeah. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Do you know how? Have you heard that joke?
I have not.
Somebody gets to New York and they're like, hey, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And he's like, practice.
I love it. Practice. You just got to keep practicing. Say the same about Madison Square Garden or anything else, right?
Yeah. But you know what the catch here is? We're always practicing. We're always practicing either complaining or negative self-talk or how we're breathing. We're actually always practicing, and we don't see and understand what we're practicing. So we're actually all training. It's like, when they talk about golf and they're like, it doesn't matter, 10,000 hours isn't going to make you a better golfer if you're doing the swing wrong, because you're just perfecting what you're doing wrong. So it's not the 10,000 hours. It's the 10,000 intentional conscious hours of doing something right or doing it better. That's actually going to, make you good. But I've learned that we're always practicing, and we got to be aware of what we're practicing. Set a clear intention. What's not aligned with that? For example, I say, we train so that our mind can be our ally. I always talk about the training with our breath, training with our body, training with our mind. And we have to train so that our mind can be our ally, so that when something difficult comes up, my mind immediately goes to a resourceful place.
Right.
That makes sense? And that only comes
No,
through
it
training.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've been here before. My training kicks in.
Yep.
And so we use stress to train. We use different practices, but you got to be intentional. You got to understand what you're training for and what you want to practice and how do you, until it becomes muscle memory, until it becomes. I'll give you another example. One time we had a Secret Santa. You know how Secret Santas work? You know, you say something about the person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You say some characteristics. And I remember somebody came up and they were like, well, my Secret Santa, you know, he was very, I don't know what the words he used to describe the before, but now he's more centered, he's more stable, and I immediately wanted it to be me. It was me. I immediately went, dude, I want those. Those are the words I want people to use to describe me. And it was my cousin describing me now. And if you ask me about how I came about to be described that way, it was through training, through practice.
Yeah.
I've actually used centering practice and practice centering and practice grounding and practice like sitting. And, you know, I do meditation and I sit for hours with my mind and I bring my mind back and I'm constantly practicing, constantly training. And it's beautiful when it's a characteristic that somebody else then it makes an observation of. Like for him to have said he is more centered, I'm like, I wanted to jump and say, shit, I've been practicing that for like 10 years now. Thank you for noticing.
Somebody finally noticed, right?
Yeah. So through training, and I would say training and practice are the same. You know, we train, we practice, we practice and we train. It's about being intentional what we're practicing, why we're practicing, have it aligned with our commitment. And then with time, that becomes who you are. You embody it. You start embody, becomes muscle memory. But it goes beyond being muscle memory. It's who you embody. It's who you become. I think.
Yeah.
I want to share another example.
Fire away.
There's this NGO called No Means No Global. No Means No Global, and it's a NGO that supports girls in rural, high-risk places like Africa, like very poor countries, helping them with sexual abuse and helping them, building them up. So it's helping them transmit their no. So bear with me here, right? Mm-hmm. It's no means no. And these girls live in places where they suffer from sexual abuse. And so what they do is, and what they discovered is that in these cultures, these little girls don't know how to say no. They've never practiced the no. They never have had the right to say no. They've never trained to say no because they are in this culture where in their house, that's not an option. Saying no is not an option. So, taking a stand for themselves and saying no, like respect me, and you're not going to like, they don't get that opportunity. That's not taught. That's not even in their reality. So this organization teaches these little girls through physical, like they do boxing, they do martial arts techniques, they punch and they scream and they use their body and they put their hands out and they yell and they say, no, this is my body. Mm-hmm. Like they put their hand on their chest and their hand out and they're like, this is my body. Respect me. This is mine. And they teach all this physical movement that I'm doing right now. They're taught to put their hands out, to yell, to hit while they're saying no. And they have numbers that demonstrate how much sexual abuse has gone down in their communities and how less prone they are to being preyed on. Why? Because when they yell and they scream, predators, they will back away. They will
Right.
But what they were finding is that when they weren't trained, their no was a squeak. Their no didn't come out of their mouth. Their no couldn't their bodies would collapse. And so they train these girls in this way to build that up through practice. So conscious, intentional practice. And you can measure that. And I think that applies to everything.
Yeah. No, you're right, man. That's heavy too. I mean, it's a reminder that, a lot of people listening to this podcast that, our worlds are pretty, for the most part, safe, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to live in a society where that's even something that, is kind of culturally predominant. So that's really cool that programs like that exist to empower people who need to be empowered the most.
And I think that's in the most extreme circumstances. We're talking about, how we're reading Man's Search for Meaning, and we're seeing how humans show up in the most extreme circumstances. That would be the most extreme circumstances. But in our day-to-day life, how many people don't know how to say no? Because they never practiced it. Yeah. They never trained it. They never repeated it. And so they're always saying they're pleasing people. So, for example, one thing I would do with my kids, and this is very Latin. I don't know how it is in the US, but in Latin America, your kids have less, I wouldn't say rights, but I'll give you an example. I would come and hug my son, and he might push me off no, Dad. So I would immediately back away. I would immediately okay. I would never force him to, if he wanted his space, I would always give it to him. My daughter also. Versus the way I grew up, it would be if they didn't want to give grandma a kiss, I would tell them, you don't want to give her a kiss? That's okay. Grandma would be pissed. She's like, you make him give me a kiss. And I'm like, no, he doesn't want to. I'm not going to force him. Because I want him to practice. I want him to practice his right to say no, to set boundaries, and to everything is practiced. Everything is trained. That's why this whole premise of we need to train for life like a warrior or an athlete. So
somebody who's listening to this is like, hey, this is all good. What the hell do you mean train for life? That sounds like it. If I were just walking into the room listening to us and I hadn't had the benefit of training myself and having a better understanding of things that you can do that will help you just navigate life more stably, I would say. How the hell does somebody train for life, Jose? What does that mean? What does it mean?
Well, bear with me because I'm also unpacking this for myself as we're speaking here. But when you train for a sport,
I know what it means.
You want to tell us what it means?
Well, let me. I've been taking some notes here. I mean, I'm gonna share with you what my understanding is, and then I'd like to hear yours. So I am aware that there are multiple things that I can do or not do for myself that have cause and effect. So, for example, one of the things that I've layered into my training for life regimen that has been probably one of the things I'm most proud of right now is my sleep. My sleep. You know that sleep used to be a major issue for me. Getting to bed, staying in bed, all these things. And now I have my sleep mostly dialed in. I measure it with a Whoop band. That's the only reason I got it. I've gamified my sleep routine, and that has made me a way better human being when I'm not asleep, when I'm awake. So I look at all the physiological things, right? So your body, which can be measured, your sleep, which can be measured and felt and seen. You can tell if I have droopy eyes or not. But then I also look at the other things that are hard to measure that only I can measure. My spirit, my mind, what's happening here, my heart. Is my heart, am I walking around grumpy, or am I, the filament in the lives of the people I touch, right? All of these things are my understanding of what it means to train for life. It means that I need to actively do things that help my sleep, that help my physical strength, that help my mental strength, that help my attitude. And I have practices that I have developed through your guidance and through my own self-discovery, and frankly, through what makes me happy in the world, and that fits into my life and makes it feel effortless, almost like joyful, that allow me to do all of those things consistently. And that means that I've had to, for my spirituality, let's use that as an example. I have a daily devotional on my desk. I have a daily devotional on the dashboard of my car. I have a Bible at home. Like, I've had to figure out ways where the spirituality aspect of my daily life, which was also a challenge for me, is part of it, right? And so for me, training for life has meant understanding all these things are connected: mind, body, spirit, physical, mental, all of these things. And then developing rituals and habits, as well as little Easter eggs that help me, whether they're reminders or something where I need it for that specific, ritual or whatever it is that I'm doing. That's how I train for life. And then furthermore, I'm accountable to myself more than anybody. Like, I check in with myself a lot. And then I surround myself with other people that think the same way. And so by nature, like, if I'm ever going off the rails mentally with something, I have a group of individuals that also train for life that I can go do life with and get through things together. So that's my understanding. How about you?
Yeah, beautiful. So what I would add on there is, some specific things like our window of tolerance. It's how much crap we can take. There's this concept in psychology called the window of tolerance. It's basically that space where you're going to function optimally in the face of life. And that window of tolerance towards what life throws at you and offers you, you can actually build it. You can optimize it and you can build it. And so we want to train, and we want to generally, anybody that I'm going to train with, I want them to have a more expanded window of tolerance. So there's different things we can do psychologically, physically, spiritually, that will help us expand our window of tolerance. Right? And then we have making our mind our ally. We want to train our mind. But I also want my nervous system to be on point also. Like, it doesn't matter if I have a good mindset if my nervous system isn't good, and my anxiety and my stress levels are unmanageable. So I want to train the system, and I want to build capacity. And that's probably something like, I see it like that's something you do with every football player or every sports player or every soldier. You want them to run a certain distance, lift certain, to have a certain capacity. And so we train to have that capacity. But then, the important question is, for the sake of what are we training? Mm-hmm. Like, what are we training for? What's the commitment here? What are you committed to, that this is why you're training? And then we have I would call the more specific abilities that each of us need to develop. Like, you might have more self-confidence than me, maybe on the edge of arrogance, and you need to train downwards. And I might have lack of self-confidence, and I might be insecure, and I might need to train upwards. Right. So it's not going to be standard for everybody. Depending on the commitment, it's like, okay, what do I need to train? What do I need to build? What do I need to embody to fulfill on this?
training down. It's something I hadn't really thought about, but it's another way of saying, hey, if I want to be the best that I can be today, there are certain things that I need to be aware of. So let's use an example. Let's use an example of training down that's happened with you and I. When I stopped nicotine and you and I were on a coaching call and you're like, Kevin, and I was getting ready to go to Latin America. I was getting ready to go to a conference and you said, Kevin, you're very...
Kevin today.
Yes. I thought you said you were very extra.
You're extra Kevin today. You're extra.
You're extra Kevin.
You're extra Kevin today.
And for listeners who may not know me, I don't have a filter, but I really learned that I do have a filter because on those days, oh hell no, I did not. I literally was saying things, and I'm like, wow, like I shouldn't talk to clients. I probably shouldn't. I told everybody this, which is funny. I told my family, it's like, man, like I was going to go to Nicaragua to detox from this stuff, right? Like, I'm like, I need to go away from all of humanity so that I'm not extra Kevining. And so that's the way that you have to train down. I want to hear about your rituals, man. How do you train for life? You're doing some crazy stuff right now, Mr. Volcano Climber.
Well, I do want to say how I was thinking of an example of a client that I'm working with that I invited her because we can train through we can cross train. We can cross train through. So she needs more impact. She needs more like getting her message across, and she needs to take a stand.
Okay.
So I got her boxing. I told her, look, work with this guy, go to boxing. So if I find somebody that's rigid and they need to be more flexible, so this is using embodiment, and this is training through the body, and this is cross training to build a certain characteristic that you need through another practice. So somebody who's always urgent, I might suggest, hey, how about, growing bonsai trees? Those things take 20 years to grow. You're not going to get it.
You think really?
Yeah, it's like a whole lifetime. Like there's bonsai trees that there's bonsai trees that like take care of a bonsai tree. That's your training so that you can train down. It's not going to go faster, man. You're not going to get fruits out of it.
Get a coloring book, an adult coloring book, and just go nuts.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. An adult coloring book, boxing. So again, for the sake of what am I training is very important so that I can then design a program, that has the basics for your window of tolerance, train your mind, train your body, but also, hey, you need some more impact in your words. Let's try boxing so that you can get that, that punch into it. And she's boxing, and that's where they learn that practice. So you can cross train. You know what? If you ask me right now, what am I training for? I'm actually in not spring training. I feel right now that I'm just in maintenance mode. That would be like, honestly, right now I feel like, okay, I'm not dropping the ball, but I'm not completely clear about what the practice or the specific training so I am trying to keep my window of tolerance wide. I am doing my ice baths. I am doing my breathing. There's probably right now, I wish I was doing more, but remember going back for the sake of what we just had a session we did on the VUCA Fit Dojo where I said, my commitment is to be a source of presence, strength, and transformation for others. But then I added a word to it, to embody being a source of presence, strength, and transformation for others. Once I add that word to embody this, I actually feel I'm not training, not enough, but not in the right way right now.
Yeah.
And if I were to think about what do I need to do right now, I probably need to meditate more. I need to sit more. I'm not sitting enough. I'm not meditating enough. I probably need to go back to the basics right now.
Yeah.
I feel I need to go back to the basics. Right now, I am more engaged with activities like climbing mountains, like going to the gym, like active out there, but I'm not sitting, I'm not settling, I'm not breathing, I'm not stopping. I need to stop a little right now and get a little bit more ground. And climbing volcanoes doesn't actually do that for me because I'm out, I'm moving and I'm thinking about the next one and I'm not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, it totally makes sense. As a matter of fact, you just described probably my scenario as well. And, you know, I'm in a recovery phase, which is really freaking hard for me coming off of knee surgery in November and still not being able to do things like jump, run, do my martial art, do really a lot of things that I like to do physically, right? Which has meant that because of that, and I'm grateful for the things I am able to do. So don't get me wrong. Like I get to go on a walk every day and do my physical therapy. It's great, right? But I've had to really like that messed up my routine. It just messed up my routine, a routine that has been something that I've worked very hard for over the years to maintain and become part of not only my schedule, but also my family's schedule, you know, because my routine has to fit into my family's schedule. We have a busy family. So when that got a little bit disrupted, what I found is that I needed to lean into the other areas that I could so that my window of tolerance stayed the same. Because when I wasn't getting endorphins kicking out and things like that from exercise, I don't get an endorphin rush from going for a walk. I don't care how fast I go. It's just not going to happen. I don't get it. I barely break a sweat. So what does that mean? It means that I need to get the mental aspect elsewhere. And so I've just had to, I guess, be a little bit more fluid, kind of like you, and be aware of the fact that maybe I'm over investing or I'm, you know, you're in the physical part right now. I'm not as much in the physical part because I can't be. So I've had to be in the other parts. And it's just, I think the key is being aware when things are maybe when you're investing a little bit too much in this area and you're like, okay, cool. Maybe I need to be still more. Maybe I need to do some hard stuff more. Maybe I haven't been pressing myself as much. Maybe like for me, when I did my first ice bath, you know, I was doing them every Sunday for like 18 months and then surgery came and I couldn't bend my knee as much. And so I couldn't physically get in. And I was able to do it for the first time about 3 weeks ago. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that ice bath was not as fun as the last one I took because it was a shock to my system because I wasn't used to doing it every week.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, and I got out after about 2 minutes. And then I reflected. I'm like, you usually are able to do like 5. Like that's my sweet spot. And giving yourself grace, understanding when things are out of balance, understanding that sometimes there's a season that things are out of balance, whether you want it or not, and being okay with that. But then also course correcting when life allows you to, or when is appropriate for you, because ultimately we're doing this ourselves. Like nobody else is making us do this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love it because the key, I think, is awareness and discernment. Like, what do I need now? Like, where am I losing balance? Where am I falling short? What am I needing to cultivate? And how do I practice that? How do I train for that?
Yeah.
Some things I feel I got them like down, like my ability to manage stress, my ability to be with uncertainty. You know, these are things that I keep, like any athlete, like that's not training for a competition, but he's doing his running, he's doing his exercise, he's going to the gym, but he's not doing the repetitions of the, like, what do you call the drills, the runs, the
drills,
plays. Mm-hmm. They're more specific to the game. So I can see that distinction in this also. And yeah, so the discernment, but again, the knowledge of or the understanding of what we're training for. Like, What is it for the sake of what? What is it? Do I want to be a better leader? Do I want to be a better father? Do I need more patience? But again, when you discern something, I'll give you an example. Like, I know I need to develop a little bit more of loving kindness. I can be a little direct and a little bit hard sometimes. And I can be an asshole sometimes. And so
it's harsh. I mean,
yeah, it can be.
I was going to say you can be a mother after, but no,
So, so there's a practice called loving kindness. And I can sit and do a loving kindness meditation every day. And that trains my ability to be more loving and kind. But I neglect it because I don't see it as important and as critical as other things. But then we got, it's worth mentioning we have all these, just like in training for an athlete or a warrior, is you got all these tools, you got all these instruments, and you can train your breath, you can train your mind, you can train with stress, but you can also train with non-stress. So I say we train with stress to prepare for stress, but we can also train with non-stress. So I can train with soft meditation and stretching and rest and foam rolling, but I can also train with heavy lifting and cold plunges and fasting and other stuff. So the more we understand these principles for ourselves, and the more awareness, like you said, the more discernment and knowing what we need, then we can start course correcting and we can start making choices. And I think the goal, Kevin, the goal that I and now you and I are now going towards is how do we teach the principles so that people can own and design their own program, their own life training program.
Their own protocol, exactly.
Their own protocols with understanding, with information, with the principles in mind. Oh, I can make up my own protocol. I can change it up. I can keep it fresh. But I always have to be training for life. And I always have to be training like a warrior or an athlete. Yeah. I think that's the basics.
And I think that's what I love about the VUCA Fit framework. It's like there's a set of things that you can do, and they're more like suggestions. There are things that none of which are things that we've invented. It's all like readily available elsewhere, plugged into a cohesive framework. And then when I got introduced to this, let's use the physical example, for example. I started looking at what were things that I could do physically that would make me feel like I'm training, but that also were a hell yes for me. So like, I'm not like you. Like you saw me when we were in Houston. I go to a gym. I am bored. Like I don't like working out inside. I don't like doing that. I like to be outdoors doing something, even if that's my martial arts practice in my backyard, or I'm at the skate park. Like for me, being at the skate park is church, and man, is it use my whole body. And for you, like surfing, right? Similar type of thing. And so I think that everybody's like system or process or whatever it is, rituals or whatever they do to train for life is going to be very specific. But the VUCA Fit method has provided some just ideas for people as a way to think about building their own protocols. Because the reality is your protocols are going to change as life demands change. You got to have some flexibility, but you also have to make this stuff a priority if you want to, honor your commitments and show up to life. I mean, if showing up to life in the best shape possible makes sense for you, some people are okay not doing that. They're probably not listening to this podcast, however.
Yeah.
They're probably not our listeners. If you just like sitting on your ass and playing video games, that's awesome. My hope is that maybe you want something more out of life, though. I don't know.
Yeah. Unless you're getting paid millions to be a video gamer.
Twitch streamer. Hell yeah. In which case, I'm jealous. That'd be cool.
Well,
it's kind of cool timing. Like, I was going to say, hey, Jose, if somebody wanted to go get some resources that they could use right now, where would be a good place to go do that? And the beautiful thing about that is that place got built basically yesterday. It is live today. And so if you go to VUCAfit.com, you're going to see big yellow buttons that say free download, how to become unbreakable. Your free download, how to become unbreakable. That is a guide that will has insights and strategies that you can use to cultivate a strong mindset in your own kind of your own trading for life framework. So Jose outlined 5 proven strategies that will help you achieve things. It's free and it's available on our website. So I would highly recommend that resource to anybody who wants to start exploring what it would be like to add various aspects of their life training regimen together into something that you would call your routine, your practice.
Yeah. I love it. And, I just see by examples, you can explain it with examples. Like right now, I'm going to go talk to the varsity team of a volleyball team. And the mom called me and she's like, they're mentally they're not in the right place mentally. They don't feel they can win. They're all negative. And the school has neglected completely the mindset aspect of training. They've been training the physical technique of playing volleyball, but have invested nothing. I actually think the coach is doing a poor job of training mindset. And they're a month away from the competition, so I don't know how much we can do now so that it can become muscle memory. But I got to go figure out how to teach them how to start training their mind to be their ally.
Yeah.
And what type of things we can do to audit our thoughts and, take them in the right direction until that actually becomes who we are. And so you can see this even in volleyball, but this will apply for life for them also.
Right.
So it's inviting them to include that mental aspect of training. And that applies to being an entrepreneur. It applies to being in business. It applies to being at home. Whether you're a stay-at-home father, stay-at-home mother, like your mind has to be your ally. And the only way to make your mind your ally is training.
Yep.
Your body needs to be your ally. And the only way to make your body your ally is training.
Yeah.
Same thing with your breathing and your nervous system, your whole system, you yourself entirely need to be your own ally. And you train that.
You do. You gotta do it daily. Daily. What else? Like, I feel like I don't really have too much else to add. What do you feel like? Is there anything
just
punctuation mark on this topic?
Just that what you're committed to is critical to identifying what you need to practice and what you need to train. There's certain principles, there's certain basic things that we all need to do, all need to learn. And then there's more things that are more unique to each of our character, to each of our abilities. Like I have a client right now practicing letting go of control. Letting go of control. She's like, my son wants to be in the military, and I was resisting it like crazy. And now I'm just like, let it go. And I find myself practicing letting go in other places. Letting go. So how do you make that a practice? You can get creative. What do you need to learn to let go? I don't know. I can't think of something right now creative to letting go, but that's what she needs to practice. That's what she needs to train.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very unique to each of us. Yeah. Even though there are some that are basic. But the VUCA Fit book.
That's what I like about it. Ooh.
The VUCA Fit book is going to be a manual.
Hold on. What book? What book?
The book we're writing.
Oh my
God. I need to practice. I need to practice not procrastinating.
No, you've done an amazing job, dude. You banged out that manuscript and working with our publisher on edits and whatnot. Like, I'm super proud of the progress that's been made on the book.
Yeah.
So
we could go a little faster if I practiced more.
You know what? You can't rush art. I mean, honestly, that's one thing that I have learned. Let's even use this example of this website, right? This website that was like, all right, we built all these different products and different ways to help people, but we don't have this cohesive place to talk about it. And so my art was coming in and figuring out what's the best way to create that. But it wasn't that I procrastinated it. It's just the time wasn't right yet, right? Yeah.
Well, I'd love
for the art to be, maybe the materials weren't there or whatever, right? The vision for the art wasn't there. And so if I would have built it 4 months ago, I'd have to redo it right now, you know? So
I think you're right.
I think art, man, it's like, I don't want to get too philosophical and go down a Rick Rubin's, path, because that dude's on another level. But I'm pretty sure that he would have a chapter about not rushing art.
I think he does. I have his book.
He really does. I mean, I have his book too.
Beautiful book. It's a beautiful book. It's amazing book. And I think you're right. I think there's something that I still feel that I still don't have that's gonna Like I feel I'm gonna go back and forth on that book, Kevin, and fix all the things that we're fixing. And once it's all fixed, I think I'm gonna go and I'm gonna rewrite the whole thing. Not rewrite it, but go through the whole thing from top to bottom and like put it all together in the way that I envision it. And I think we're going there. I think it's gonna happen. So I hear you.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
I think we're good.
All right.
We got to train for life like a warrior would train or an athlete would train. If you want to, conquer? I don't know. Live the great life.
Conquer. If you just want to, if you want to die empty, right? I think in order to die empty, you have to train for life. You can't just be on the sidewalk. And I use that metaphor a lot. I actually took it from a book. I can't remember what it was. Terrible book. Actually, it wasn't a terrible book. Terrible title. Millionaire's Fastlane. The title sounds scammy. The concepts are great. But MJ DeMarco talks about a lot of people being on the sidewalk of life. And his metaphor is economically. They're just hourly job, whatever it is. They're just going through life. Boom, boom, boom. Just not trying to achieve more. So therefore, they don't get off the sidewalk onto the road or onto the freeway, right? And I think that sometimes, if somebody's on the sidewalk, they just got to know that you just got to step into the road and start walking, and then eventually you'll be able to start running and not be on the sidewalk of life. Be intentional. Be intentional. So I'm going to wrap us up. So I mentioned this earlier, but we've got a bunch of free resources. I'm really proud of the resources. We actually specifically have 3 free resources at VUCAfit.com that went live earlier today. We've got the guide that I was talking about that Jose has compiled around 5 proven strategies that you can use today. One of the other resources is 17 must-read books. So these are books that we've compiled and put direct links if you want audio or Kindle or printed on purpose, on body, on breath, and your mind. And so those are some great resources. They just went live. They can help you if you're trying to figure out how you make sense of all this stuff or how you start applying it like today, practical application. That's our goal with them. So they're free. Go check them out. Until next week, I'm Kevin. This is my buddy, Jose. We appreciate you. We hope you have a phenomenal week and be well.